I've been married for almost 6 years. It's not a bad marriage, at least, that's what I kept telling myself. My wife, Lauren, is a good person, responsible, smart, organized. She makes the world around her function like clockwork, and that includes me. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling like just another part of the system. A cog in her perfectly arranged life. Not a man, not a partner, just someone to keep things running. It didn't happen all at once. At first, it was subtle. She stopped asking about my day. We'd have dinner, and instead of talking, we'd both scroll through our phones in silence. Our intimacy dried up slowly, like a faucet being turned off one drip at a time. I told myself it was normal, that all long-term relationships hit a rut. But I was lonely, more than I ever admitted out loud. So when the headaches and stress kept piling up and sleep became a stranger, I finally scheduled an appointment with a doctor. I just wanted a prescription to take the edge off. Something temporary. Something to make me feel functional again. Dr. Emerson Hale was new at the clinic. The receptionist mentioned it when I booked. "She's a great listener," she said, almost like a warning. When I walked into her office, I expected the usual, polite indifference, 5-minute diagnosis, generic meds. What I didn't expect was her. She stood when I entered, not just to shake my hand, but to really look at me. Her eyes locked onto mine in a way that made me feel seen. She had a calm voice, not in a rehearsed professional way, but like she genuinely cared how you were doing. She didn't start with the clipboard. She started with, "Tell me what's going on really." I found myself talking more than I intended, about my stress, the sleep issues, how I felt like I was losing control. I never mentioned Lauren by name, but I hinted enough. Emerson didn't interrupt. She listened like she was holding space for me to unravel. There was something comforting about her, almost dangerous. When the session was over, I stood to leave, and she handed me a small white card. "I don't usually do this," she said, "but if things get worse before the next appointment, here's my personal number." I stared at it. Not the clinic number. Her number. "Thanks," I muttered, slipping it into my pocket, unsure what to make of it. The next few days, I kept taking the pills she prescribed. They helped a little, but her number burned in my thoughts more than anything else. I kept pulling it out, staring at it, and putting it back like it was something illicit. I hadn't told Lauren about the appointment. When she asked how it went, I said, "Fine. Just stress." She nodded and went back to whatever she was doing. We hadn't touched in over 3 weeks. On a Thursday night, alone in the living room while Lauren worked late, I texted Emerson. Just a simple, "Hey, thanks again for the session the other day. It actually helped." She replied almost instantly, "I'm glad. You seemed like you had a lot bottled up." That's all it took. The conversation kept going. At first, it stayed within the lines, talking about stress, sleep, anxiety. But soon it shifted. We started talking about music, books, weird things from our childhoods. She told me about her favorite movie, and I told her about my failed attempt at starting a band in college. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. Then came the photo. Nothing inappropriate. Just a selfie. Her in her kitchen, holding a mug of tea. Casual. But the way she looked into the camera felt intentional. Like she wanted me to notice her lips, the curve of her neck, the soft fall of her hair. I didn't respond right away. I stared at it for longer than I should have. I knew the feeling was mutual. I knew I should stop. But instead, I took a picture of my dog curled up beside me on the couch and sent it back. She replied with a heart. That night, I lay beside Lauren, wide awake, pretending to be asleep. Her back was turned, her breathing slow. I wondered if she even noticed how far apart we'd become. I wondered if she cared. The next time I saw Emerson, she wasn't wearing her usual white coat. She smiled when I walked in. "You look better," she said. "I've been sleeping more," I replied, even though that was a lie. I hadn't been sleeping at all. The session was short. I don't remember much about it, just that I kept watching her mouth move, the way her eyes lingered when she looked at me. As I stood to leave, she stepped closer, brushing something imaginary off my shoulder. "Take care of yourself," she said, soft and low. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel. My hands were shaking. It wasn't physical yet, but something had already started. I couldn't tell if I was excited or terrified. Later that evening, Lauren noticed I was distracted. "You okay?"
Yeah.
"Just tired." She didn't push. I don't think she wanted to know the truth. That night, Emerson texted again. "You looked different today. Lighter. Or maybe just clearer." I didn't respond right away. Then I typed, "You make it easy to be honest." She replied, "That's rare. Most people wear masks all the time." I stared at that message for a while. Then I typed, "I feel like I can breathe when I talk to you." I never hit send. I deleted it. But the damage was already done. We'd stepped past something, and I wasn't sure either of us wanted to go back. Lauren kissed me that night before bed. A quick, habitual peck. Her lips barely touched mine. I didn't feel anything. When she rolled over and turned off the lamp, I looked up at the ceiling and thought, I think I'm in trouble. And deep down, I didn't want to stop. I didn't text her the next day. Or the day after that. I kept thinking about that moment in the parking lot, how close she stood, the warmth of her breath. It wasn't just flirting. It felt heavier, like a door had opened and we were both waiting to see who'd walk through it first. I told myself I needed to pull back. That this wasn't just a bad idea. It was dangerous. But wanting something and staying away from it aren't the same thing. On the third night, her name popped up again. "You ghosting me already?" I stared at it, half smiling. I waited 10 minutes before replying, trying to be responsible. Responsible is overrated. She sent a winking emoji. I told myself not to read too much into it. Then we talked for an hour. About nothing and everything. I told her about my favorite dive bar from college. She told me about her dog that died last year and how she still talks to him out loud sometimes. Her messages felt like someone wrapping their arms around me without touching me. Intimate in a way Lauren hadn't been in months. The next week, I pretended to need a follow-up appointment. I told myself it was for the prescription. But I knew that was a lie. I just wanted to see her again. She looked different. More casual. Her hair was down, no makeup, a soft sweater instead of a lab coat. She smiled when she saw me, and I felt it everywhere. She sat across from me and didn't even open my file. "You seem better." "I've been talking to someone." "Oh yeah." I didn't say her name. I didn't have to. After the appointment, she leaned on the edge of her desk. "I know a place with great coffee. Not far from here. Nothing formal. Just caffeine." It wasn't a date. But it also was not a date. We met on a Saturday. Neutral territory. She wore jeans and a black leather jacket. I noticed everything about her. How she tucked her hair behind her ear, how her voice softened when she laughed. We talked like old friends who had just found each other again. When she touched my arm to make a point, I didn't move. I didn't want to. We didn't talk about my wife. That night, I lied. Told Lauren I was at the hardware store. She didn't question it. The next week, Emerson sent a voice note. Just her saying good morning. I played it 3 times before replying. Then I sent one back. I started checking my phone obsessively. I muted every app, but left hers on full volume. The anticipation was addictive. I waited for her text the way I used to wait for Lauren's years ago. Before bills and schedules and unspoken silences. One night she asked, "If you could start over, what would you do differently?" I typed everything, then deleted it. Instead, I said, "I'd pick the right person the first time." She replied, "Maybe you did. But they changed." That one hit me. I stopped sleeping again, but not from stress. From adrenaline. I kept replaying our conversations in my head, wondering how far this would go, how far I wanted to go. The first time I lied to Lauren about where I was going, it felt like swallowing glass. I said I was meeting a coworker. I went to see Emerson instead.
We didn't kiss that night.
But we stood too close. She looked at my mouth when I spoke. Her hand brushed mine when I passed her my coffee, and neither of us pulled away. "I should go," I said. "I know," she replied. But she didn't move. I turned and walked to the car without looking back.
She didn't stop me.
But she didn't need to. Later that night, Lauren noticed my shirt smelled like perfume. I told her it must have been someone at the office. She squinted. Something flickered in her eyes, but she didn't push. That scared me more than if she had. Emerson started texting late at night. 11 p.m. 1 a.m. messages like, can't sleep. Thinking too much. Or, wish I could hear your voice right now. I gave in. One night, I called her. Her voice was warm, like she'd been waiting. I was hoping you'd call. We didn't talk about sex. We didn't have to. The tension lived in every pause, every breath. The space between our words said everything. She said, "You make me feel like I'm not alone." I wanted to say something back, something true. But all I could think was, I feel alive when I'm with you. The next morning, Lauren found a message on my phone. Just a notification bubble. Last night was the best part of my week. She didn't say anything. Just handed me the phone and walked away. That silence haunted me. Later, Emerson texted, "I think about you more than I should." I typed, "I do too," and hit send before I could regret it. I was addicted. Not to sex, because we hadn't crossed that line. I was addicted to being wanted, to being seen, to not feeling invisible anymore. Lauren started watching me differently. Her smiles felt forced. She asked questions with a tone that felt sharp around the edges. I knew she was piecing it together. Slowly. I should have stopped. I should have told Emerson we'd gone too far. That I was married. That I wasn't who she thought I was. But then she texted, "You're the only real thing in my life right now." And I couldn't walk away. The guilt started to blur. What was one more lie when the first dozen hadn't blown up yet? We planned to meet again. Just for coffee. Just to talk. That's what I told myself. But I knew it wouldn't stop there. The night before, I sat across from Lauren during dinner. She was scrolling through her phone. I studied her face. Tried to remember how it felt when I used to look at her with hunger. With need. She looked up. "You've been different lately." I swallowed hard. "Just tired." "Is there someone else?" She asked it like it was a throwaway question. Like she didn't want the answer. I hesitated too long. She looked down, nodded once, and didn't ask again. That night, I stared at the ceiling, wondering how close I was to the edge. And if falling would finally make me feel free. The next morning, Emerson sent a message. "Still on for tonight?" I replied, "Yes." No hesitation. It wasn't a matter of if anymore. It was when. She opened the door before I even knocked. Her eyes met mine like she already knew what was about to happen. No small talk. No pretense. Just this quiet, thick understanding between us. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. I stepped inside. The door shut behind me. She didn't ask if I wanted coffee. I didn't ask why she was standing so close. We both knew it wasn't about talking anymore. I kissed her first. No hesitation. No guilt, not in that moment. Her hands pulled me closer, like she'd been waiting forever. The kiss wasn't soft. It was hungry, built on weeks of restraint and tension, and things we never dared to say out loud. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. We didn't say much. It all happened fast and slow at once. I couldn't stop touching her. She didn't ask questions. We just let it happen. The couch, the floor, none of it mattered. It wasn't about location. It was about escape. For both of us. Afterward, she lay beside me, one hand on my chest, tracing circles absent-mindedly. "This isn't just physical," she said. "I know." "You don't talk about her," she added. "There's nothing left to say." She didn't press. She just nodded, like she understood the language of broken marriages without needing the translation. I went home smelling like her. I tried to shower the scent off before Lauren got back from her sister's place, but it lingered. I could feel it on my skin like a brand. Lauren didn't say anything that night. She barely looked at me. It was like she knew something had shifted and she didn't want to dig into it because she was scared of what she'd find. Emerson texted, "I miss you already." I replied, "I don't want to be anywhere else." The lies came easier after that. I became good at pretending. good at acting normal. I still paid bills. I still asked Lauren if she needed anything. I still made dinner once a week. But every minute I wasn't with Emerson felt like I was wasting my time on a life I didn't choose anymore. Emerson started expecting more. More of my time. More of my attention. She wanted little pieces of me I'd never given anyone, not even Lauren. And I gave them willingly. I told her things I'd never said out loud. That I felt invisible. That I thought I'd married the wrong person. That I didn't remember the last time I felt like myself until I met her. One night, she said, "You don't have to keep pretending. You can leave. Start over." I didn't answer. Because that was the line. The real one. Not sex. Not kissing. Not sneaking around. Leaving. That was the irreversible part. Lauren started watching me differently. She asked questions that weren't questions. Like, "You've been going out a lot lately." Or, "That cologne smells new." I shrugged it off. Told her she was imagining things. Gaslighting, really. I hated myself for it.
But I did it anyway.
The double life wore me down. I'd go from Emerson's apartment, flushed and wired, straight into dinners where Lauren talked about redecorating the guest room or scheduling dentist appointments. I'd nod, pretending to care, while my phone buzzed with Emerson asking, "Miss me yet?" We started meeting at a hotel once a week. Same room.
Same time.
It was routine in the best and worst way. She'd open the door and melt into me like we hadn't touched in years. We made love like it was the only thing holding us together. Like we were trying to prove this mattered more than anything else in the world. One night, after, I said, "This can't last forever." She looked at me, eyes glassy. "Why not?" "Because I'm lying to two people. You and her." "You're not lying to me. You're lying to yourself." I didn't respond. That weekend, Lauren found the hotel receipt. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just placed it on the table in front of me and waited. "I want the truth," she said. I stared at the paper. My name.
The date.
The room number. Emerson's apartment was too risky, so I'd started using hotels. I thought I was being smart. I was just getting sloppy. "I've been seeing someone," I said finally. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Then she stood up, walked into the bedroom, and shut the door. The silence after that was unbearable. I slept on the couch. I didn't call Emerson. Not for 2 days. She messaged me, called me twice. I ignored both. Then she showed up at my office. "I haven't heard from you," she said. "She knows," I told her. "Are you staying with her?" "I don't know." She didn't cry, but her face collapsed just a little. "I thought this meant more," she said. "It does." "Then why does it feel like you're already pulling away?" Because I was. Not because I loved Lauren, but because I was scared. Scared of everything falling apart at once. Lauren and I had one conversation.
One.
She told me she wasn't going to beg me to stay. She said if I wanted out, I should just go. I asked if we could try counseling.
She laughed.
Bitter.
Hollow.
"You want to fix this now? After everything?" I don't want to destroy everything we built. You already did. That night, I went to Emerson's. I told her, I said, "Are you moving out?"
No.
She turned away. "Then what are we doing?" I couldn't answer. She nodded slowly. "I love you, but I'm not your escape hatch. I never meant for it to go this far. But you let it." We sat in silence.
She didn't ask me to stay.
I didn't ask her to wait. I left before midnight. That was the last time I saw her. The morning after I left her apartment for the last time, I sat in my car for over an hour before driving home. The city was waking up around me, but I felt disconnected from all of it, like someone watching their own life through a fogged-up window. I didn't go back to the hotel. I didn't go back to Emerson. I went home, to the quiet shell of what my marriage had become. Lauren didn't speak.
She didn't ask where I'd been.
She just moved around me like I didn't exist. Her silence wasn't passive, it was final. I could feel it in every step she took, in the way she refused to look me in the eyes. I tried once, tentatively, to start a conversation. She picked up her keys and walked out the door. I didn't chase her. For days, we coexisted like strangers. No fights. No demands. Just absence. She didn't mention therapy again. She didn't threaten divorce. But she started locking her phone, taking longer to come home, dressing in a way that made me wonder if someone else had started to notice her. I had no right to ask. And even if I had, I wouldn't have. The guilt wasn't crushing anymore, it was numbing. I didn't hear from Emerson for 2 weeks. I didn't expect to. I think we both understood that what we had only worked because it wasn't real life. It lived in the gaps between lies and avoidance. We never had to do dishes together, never had to argue about taxes or bills or laundry. We were a fantasy, and fantasies don't survive reality. But when her name flashed on my screen again, I stared at it for a long time before opening the message. "Are you okay?" I didn't reply right away. Later that night, I typed out a response. "I don't know what I am." She didn't text again. A week later, I started seeing a therapist. Not Emerson's kind. Not someone I felt drawn to. Just someone clinical and distant enough that I could talk without getting pulled into anything emotional. I told him I cheated on my wife. I told him I felt empty. That I didn't know if I loved anyone anymore. My wife, the other woman, even myself. He asked why I stayed. I told him because it was easier than starting over. He didn't judge me, just nodded, wrote something down, and said, "Comfort is often the enemy of change." That line stuck with me. One morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Emerson in days. Then I realized that scared me more than missing her, because it meant the high was fading. That whatever we had wasn't love. It was escape, addiction, novelty. A way to feel something again when everything else felt gray. Lauren and I went to dinner with friends that weekend. Our first public appearance in over a month. She wore a dress I hadn't seen in years. She laughed at someone's joke. For a split second, I saw a version of her I hadn't seen since we first got together. But when she looked at me, there was nothing behind her eyes. Just politeness. Cold, quiet, distant politeness. When we got home, she went straight to bed. I stood in the kitchen, staring at my reflection in the microwave door. I looked older. Not tired, just aged in a way I couldn't fix with sleep or vitamins. I looked like someone who'd done damage. Someone who now had to live with it. Emerson sent one more message. "I hope you find whatever you were looking for."
I didn't respond.
Because the truth was, I didn't know what I was looking for. I still don't. Lauren filed for separation 2 weeks later. No surprise. No argument. She handed me the papers like she was returning something broken to a store, and she was tired of being polite about it. I signed them without reading everything. It didn't matter anymore. We didn't have kids, so the process was quick. We sold the house. She moved in with her sister. I got a furnished apartment downtown.
Smaller.
Quieter. Lonelier. I kept the dog. Not because she didn't want him, but because she said he still trusts you. Those words echoed in my head for days. I ran into Emerson months later. Grocery store. Completely random. She looked different. Lighter. Maybe even happier. We exchanged a polite smile. She said, "Hey." I said it back. That was it. No awkwardness. No tension. Just two people who once held each other through a storm they weren't supposed to survive. She walked away first. I stood there for a moment, staring at the cereal boxes in front of me, wondering if that was the last time I'd ever see her. I never found out. My therapist says healing takes time. That it's not about fixing the past, but learning how to carry it. That some decisions don't come with closure, just consequences. I didn't argue. I don't think I'm looking for closure anymore. Just peace. Some nights, I still dream about her. Sometimes it's Lauren. Sometimes it's Emerson. Sometimes it's both, standing on opposite sides of a room, and I'm stuck in the middle, unable to move. I wake up sweating, the dog curled against my side, the apartment silent. Other nights, I sleep straight through. I deleted Emerson's number, but not because I wanted to forget her. I just couldn't trust myself with it anymore. Some part of me will always miss her. Not her, exactly. Just the version of me that existed when she looked at me like I was something more than what I'd become. Lauren's dating again. I saw her with someone a few weeks back. They looked good together. She smiled in a way that made me realize she hadn't just moved on. She'd reclaimed herself. And I was no longer part of that version of her life. I didn't feel angry or jealous. I just felt small. Maybe that's the real ending. Not some big dramatic fight or final confession. Just the quiet realization that you broke something that mattered, and you don't get to decide how the other person rebuilds afterward. I'm not a villain in this story, but I'm not a hero either. I was just a man who wanted to feel seen, and in the process, made 3 people feel invisible. And now I live with that. Every day.